Alpha Geek.
Turn up your volume a little bit.
Okay, I will just get closer to my microphone and talk up.
There you go.
I will speak with more authority. I've got my I know what this dog stands for on my shirt.
What exactly is that?
This is the White Dog Cafe, which is a very famous restaurant in Philly.
Okay.
It's on the campus of Penn, University of Pennsylvania.
Yep.
It's one of these.
Penn's nice.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the nicer restaurants around there. It's old school Pennsylvania. It's like old school Pennsylvania meets fancy cuisine, and so you'll have chicken pot pies and shoe fly pie, in the most incredible way you'd ever try that.
What is shoe fly pie?
Shoe fly pie?
Yeah.
It's like a big fig Newton essentially.
Oh, I would like that.
Yeah, it's like a pie with fig Newton stuff because whatever. So it's fig, and then crust and crumbled crust on top of it and a pie shell. It's amazing. It's a Lancaster, Pennsylvania Dutch thing, and it's
Okay.
Sounds similar to pecan pie in a way.
Yeah, except it's that except it's not pecan. But besides that, it is.
Other than that, it tastes exactly like it.
It is a pie. It it does have. It is round.
Well, what an observation there, Ag.
You said it sounds like pecan pie. I'm like, yeah, it's like pecan pie. In terms of its pie-ness, it is very pie-like.
I like strawberry rhubarb pie.
Rhubarb, that's a good old Midwestern hearty fruit.
Yep.
That'll kill you.
Also popular in New England as well.
Is it New England? Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I'm weird when it comes to pies because I like lemon pie, but everybody makes lemon pie, lemon meringue pie, and I hate meringue.
You hate meringue.
Like those lemon pies you used to get in those little Hostess things.
Yes,
those things are amazing.
I hate the meringue. So whenever my mother makes lemon meringue pie, I have to peel the meringue off the pie and maybe put whipped cream on it because whipped cream is much more pleasant tasting than this whipped egg concoction that they put on top of the pie. It's just gross. What can I say?
I don't know what happened there for a second. Sorry.
I like the key lime too. Key lime's good.
Yes, I like the key lime. Exactly.
See, there's a fine difference between key lime pie and lemon meringue pie that I have not quite distinguished. There's I like lemon squares.
Lemon squares are good.
That's like a New York thing.
I got a recipe for blueberry lemon squares. I was thinking I'm gonna make those pretty soon.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah.
It's Baking Buzz here on Hockey.
No one ever knows what we're going to talk about when we get it. I don't even know how we got on this.
Story. I love to cook.
Oh, we went from the White Dog Cafe to yes. I don't remember how we got here now. So yeah, I'm posting us to our friends over at Alpha Geek. Give me 1 second. I have to be on for a minute before we can do it.
Is there an Alpha Geek app?
There is. It's a really good app too.
I'm going to download it.
They also are on TuneIn Radio, which is an app that I basically.
Yep, I have that.
I have not to give free promotion to TuneIn Radio, but since Alpha Geek is on there, TuneIn Radio is how I listen to all the radio stations that I listen to via, through in Toronto, WFAM in New York, podcasts, everything through TuneIn Radio. It's a godsend. I love it.
They really do a nice job.
Have you guys been following the HoloLens thing from Microsoft?
No.
Nope.
Oh my gosh, I got to show you guys something. I'll show you guys as soon as I put this on here. Let me just put this. The weird thing about this.
Oh, a quick movie update, Ek. I did on the weekend go to see Avengers: Age of Ultron.
How was it?
I give it a thumbs up. I mean, it
was good, right?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Good story. I mean, to me, the plus of that series is the interaction between all these actors. I mean, it's really good. It's just the ensemble.
You know what that is? That's Will Wheaton, man. It's all Will Wheaton because it's he's the one who makes that thing tick. And Will Wheaton is a
Josh Wheaton.
Josh Wheaton. Yes.
Back to Star Trek: The Next Generation.
I heard, and Big Bang Theory. I heard that the Avengers was really good, but my favorite is the second Captain America. I thought was amazing, the Winter Soldier, and they said
that is an incredible movie. You're right.
But not to take the superhero out of it, that is just a great movie, and and the way they set it up for the third one, it's like they almost Marvel was saying that it's like Avengers is so big and everything, but the storyline with the Captain America is actually more intriguing, and that standalone movie, they're more, they think it might even do better than the Avengers.
I think I think is the best actor in the whole bunch.
Robert Downey Jr. is pretty good too.
Yeah, no, I mean he is really Robert, but I just think the guy who plays
Chris Evans.
Yeah, he does an incredible job. I mean, because
which Alpha Geek are we on? 1, 2, 3, 4.
We're on 2. But I got to get this. I'm getting it working 1 second. It's not working 1 second. I will have it in a second.
Well, personally, my favorite is Scarlett Johansson, but for obvious reasons.
It's hard to argue that one.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, come on, what am I doing wrong here? Sorry, give me 1 second.
Okay. But no, I thought it was a pretty good movie, and I just honestly, I'm getting overdosed with cartoon and comic movies. I mean, there were 7 previews on the Avengers movie, and I think 3 of them were cartoon or comic. Ant-Man with Paul Rudd, and there were the Tomorrowland with George Clooney that's coming out. I don't know if that's based on a comic or if that's just like
it's just like a Disney imagination kind of thing.
Right, exactly.
Disney self-promotion.
Yeah, right. Please. And there was one other that I can't remember, but it's just, I mean, honestly, I like those. I grew up reading some comic books. I wasn't like an addict of them, but I enjoy them. Oh, Fantastic Four. The reboot of Fantastic Four, which, excuse me, was done 3 years ago with Jessica Alba and Chris Evans.
Chris Evans, yeah, and Michael Chiklis.
Right, yeah, and
right.
They're completely redoing it after 5. It's like redoing Spider-Man. I mean, my God, Tobey Maguire was Spider-Man 5-6 years ago, and now they've already made 2 sequels.
Yep.
You know what? Yeah, did you guys see The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch?
I haven't, but I want to see it. And I think it's that's the type of movie I like seeing.
It's just so I mean, I love all these big blockbuster movies, but I went and saw that in the movies, and it's just a bunch of actors in a room acting. It's not all this special effects. It's not all this green screen. It's just a bunch of actors on location just acting, and it's an amazing, amazing story that I wasn't that familiar with.
But the funny thing is, Dan, is that movie? It was not a remake, but there was a movie made, and I'd have to find out the name of the movie because I'm drawing a blank. But there was a movie made about a decade ago with Kate Winslet, with the guy who was in Game of Thrones who plays one of the land.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, with Dougray Scott and a couple other Saffron Burrows. It's the same story. It's about the Enigma machine. It's about Bletchley Park and them discovering the way of decoding. It's the same story. And don't get me wrong, I think it's a great story and it's very, very interesting. But they've done it.
Right.
They've done it a few times. There are so many stories out there, historical stories. I mean, not to get into the politics of it, but a movie like American Sniper was unique because that story hadn't been told before.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Hollywood doesn't want to take risks anymore. They're falling back on the comfort zone of, let's do a comic book movie. Because
we're losing all of our listeners on Alpha Geek Radio because we're ripping into comic book movies. But no, I'm with you completely. No, I mean, I wonder. I mean, you have to wonder how long this is going to run. Like this is an incredible run that these superheroes have had right now.
Well, the funny thing too is 10 years ago when the first Iron Man came out, they really couldn't get any funding for it, and they're like, "This is an ancillary hero. No one really cares about this guy. We don't want to do comic book movies because some of the other ones weren't that good."
Right.
It's funny how that trend kind of started it all. Favreau did Iron Man, and that kind of just took everything off.
I'm a big Trekkie. I loved the original Star Trek series. I liked most of the Star Trek movies, but obviously as Shatner and the late Leonard Nimoy got older, it became less and less, commercial because you got a 70-year-old man jumping around fighting aliens. I mean, it was losing its credibility. Then the Next Generation came in, and I liked Patrick Stewart and all that cast, but at a point it got ridiculous. Now they reboot Star Trek, and now they've done 2 movies, and I'm sure they're probably going to end up doing a third with Chris Pine and is it Zach Quinto?
Yeah.
It's not the. I'm sorry, it's just not the same. I mean,
I like them though.
I like
the original Star Trek. I actually like the reboots.
Yeah, see, I'm a Shatner guy.
Next Generation was awesome. I thought.
Me too. I did like Next Generation.
I thought the movies were good, and I liked the series. But I'm sorry, there's nothing to me that matches the original, and just the
All right, Mike. This.
Oh God!
Amazing.
No, come on. The rules don't apply to Star Wars.
Yeah, you're right. I just changed. I got rid of my hashtag here, and I put "We Are Nerds" in the bottom.
If you haven't seen this,
please, when Harrison Ford in this preview at the end says Chewie.
Oh yeah, don't let people watch. Let people watch here because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I won't say what half the geeks in the world did, but it was
that picture is awesome right there.
Yep.
And you see that the ship from the first Star Wars in the sand.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a cool picture too. Like that's.
And unless I'm mistaken, I read somewhere that they're doing a sequel of Independence Day.
Wow.
Why?
I mean, come on, Hollywood, get some original ideas.
Yep.
It's called Constitution Day, right?
I don't know.
It's called Arbor Day.
Arbor Day. You have that power too. No, come on.
Labor Day. There you go.
Labor Day.
Just that thing.
Yeah.
The real robot.
Really?
Yeah, it's not CG. They made one of those.
That's pretty cool.
You know the Sphero? Have you ever seen Sphero? The ball Sphero that he runs around on the ground?
Yeah.
It's a giant Sphero.
Yeah, this looks really good.
It looks. Don't get me wrong. It looks really good. It's just
it looks amazing to this point, and then you're like, holy cow, this is awesome. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, comes the Millennium Falcon. This is the best Millennium Falcon shot of all time. Because obviously the technology is so much better now. This just is like it flying into that thing. Incredible.
I'm not sure how many female viewers we get each day, but I'm sure they're dropping off like flies right now.
Well.
No, but hey,
and that at the end, you're right. You're right. I mean that. Chewie, we're home at the end. Come on, that's amazing. Absolutely.
It's gonna be good.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Hockey time.
Hockey time. 1 second. Let me quit all these other things because we have all kinds of things happening at the same time. I think right now. All right. I think we're good. All right. No, we still got echoes, right?
Yeah, it's not. I'm turned down.
I don't hear any echoes.
Probably.
I hear an echo through somebody. It might be you, Ek.
Yeah. Hold on. Okay, Mike.
I don't hear any echoes.
I do. I might mess up. Hello? Check. 1, 2. Yep. I'm hearing a big echo. It's coming.
Sound good to me.
Let me mute you for a second. Muting Mike. The echo is gone now, Mike. When I mute you.
1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, it's gone.
I think Mike, it might be a little loud or something.
Just leave him muted.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, hey, sorry.
There, it's better. I think.
How's it now?
It's still there a little bit.
I'll log out and log back in quickly.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so had you ever been on Alpha Geek Radio? That was our little. We had to do something there. But though the Microsoft HoloLens thing is freaking amazing. That's like, let me show you that while we're waiting for Mike here. Little technology fun day for us.
How is it now?
That's better.
I think we're good.
Okay, so real quick, I'm just for our tech friends out there, since it's have a whole lot to talk about today. This is the ticket. So all right, let me just get this here. So I'm gonna move this. Okay, so I'm gonna mute this for a second, but okay, so this is the HoloLens. This is the new thing. This is like the Google Glass. This is not Google Glass, obviously, but it's a totally different. I gotta bring it up here. Where is it? Okay, here we go. All right. So what this is that's the camera, of course, filming it. That's not the thing. You'll actually wear on your head is a small thing. But see that what it does is it puts holograms into the room with you.
Wow.
All right. So that is actually like so. And if someone else is wearing the glasses too, they can see the same hologram. So imagine the processing power of this. Like these things. So as you go over to the room here, you see the things on the walls. You put them there. They are not really there, and that that little robot on the table there, that's not real either. That's just a little. This guy is just a little thing. So the craziness of this is wherever you want to put something in your house, you just put it over on that wall. If you want to put the TV on the wall, you put the sports on the wall, you put it there. There's a holograms in the middle of the room, and I'll go forward a little bit here. can.
Boy, lonely people everywhere are thinking of things to do with this.
Well, of course, gonna go there. But but look at this. So as you spin, see that? So he's okay. I'll put this up on the wall. I'll put my Skype there. And now as I walk around the room, you see the room, which is the incredible thing about this. You see the room, but you also this goes with you. So you see the room and you see the other things. So you're not just watching, like a video screen. You're watching your environment interacting with your video, interacting with all these screens. And this, to me, is like why I want to be alive in this century. Like, this is just an incredible. This kind of just blows you away. Anyway, so we're working on a HockeyBuzz app for it, and we'll see what happens.
So you can actually, if you get these, you can take our webcast and you can just watch it anywhere.
Right. It could be like we're sitting in the room with you.
Yes, I think people want that.
They do.
I do.
At least they want Julie in the room with them. That'll work better.
Don't sell yourself short, Eck.
No, thanks. But no, Julie is. All right, let's begin the show. It's the 19th of May.
Who's first? Mike.
Oh, so by the way, you guys saw the? Do you guys see the Tyler Seguin Instagram with?
I heard about it. I didn't see it.
I didn't see it.
Well, if you didn't see it or hear about it, you can find it. I mean, he took it down instantly. But Tyler Seguin took a picture of himself, or had somebody take a picture of him drinking from the World Championship Cup in the locker room.
Okay.
In the background was a buck-naked Claude Giroux holding a beer.
Oh.
But fortunately the beer was held in the right spot, and but it was, and he had a towel over him, but it was obviously he didn't see it when he posted it, and it was taken down almost instantly when people realized that there's a buck-naked Claude Giroux in the background. So I had a long discussion with Julie about this yesterday. So
I'm glad I missed that one.
Yeah. All right, let's begin the show. Hello, Hockey World. How you doing? It's Tuesday, May 19th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Dan Petru.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com and Alpha Geek Radio. You're listening or watching on Alpha Geek Radio, Alpha Geek Radio Channel 2, and we really love the folks at Alpha Geek. And my gosh, this has been amazing. It's opened us up to a whole bunch of new people, and it's also, guys, personally, I have to just, we're not getting paid to be on Alpha Geek Radio. We just really legitimately love being there, and I absolutely love the fact that I'm now, my broadcast is right in there with most of the podcasts I listen to are on Alpha Geek Radio. So it's really fun for me. So it's just in the middle of it all. And you can listen to it via the TuneIn Radio app or the Alpha Geek Radio app. So either way. So let's get down to it. Last night, we're back in, before we're going to get into Babcock talk too, of course, and Babcock blocking, which is a new term.
Bab watch.
But we're going to get into that later. So last night, the Tampa Bay Lightning, they brought it. They showed up. And this is my thing about Tampa that makes this more interesting than previous years. Usually when you get to the Final Four, you sort of know what these teams are about. And Tampa is still young enough and inexperienced enough that there are several layers to the Tampa Bay Lightning. And when the Tampa Bay Lightning are playing their best, like they were at times last night and like they were a couple times in the Montreal series, they are the best team in hockey. Like they completely. I mean, they have the best defense, the best offense. They can take over a game. But that's not consistent, which is what makes this kind of interesting because we don't know what Tampa Bay Lightning team you're going to get. Through this process, you can tell that they're learning, and they're more and more you're seeing the better Tampa Bay Lightning. But what do you think of this one, Dan?
Well, it's we think we learned a couple things. Don't take penalties against Tampa because my goodness, their power play was dynamic, and I think when you score a goal. When you're killing a 5-on-3 and you're able to score a goal, which is so rare, it's like rarely do you win a game when you give up one of those shorthanded goals. It's almost like if you give up a shorthanded goal 5-on-3, that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the night. And the Rangers, they hung around and they stayed in the game for a while, but just a lot of undisciplined and unnecessary penalties just kind of gave Tampa quite a few opportunities, and they just buried them. We're going to talk about the draft quite a bit. We're going to break down the draft about who's going 1, who's going 2, who's going 3, but there's always stories like Tyler Johnson, a guy who's undrafted, little undersized, but you can't measure what he brings in analytics. It's desire and a want, and it's funny because if I'm a Rangers fan and I watch this little guy just score some scrappy, ugly goals in front of the net, I'm wondering why 61 can't do that.
Right.
It's like, hey, I got a guy who's 5'7", who is fearless and goes to the net and is not afraid of contact. And there's guys on my team who's 6'4" and won't do that. So I think we have a series now. This is interesting. Tampa does not have the consistency, as you said, but boy, do they have the firepower. And when they're going, it's fun hockey to watch. And last night was surely entertaining.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, it's funny because New York radio this morning was particularly brutal on Nash and on Marty St. Louis. It was basically saying Marty St. Louis is done.
It's tough. He's hard to watch right now.
Yeah, Joe Beningo from WFAN Radio said that Rick Nash couldn't get lucky in a brothel right now.
Wow.
And I mean, honestly, I think Nash has always had trouble scoring in the playoffs. But I think the Rangers made a tactical error last night, and if the funny thing was, if they played their usual boring yet effective defensive sort of matchup game, I think that more than likely it would have been a 1-goal game, and they probably would have won. But last night they opened it up. They played a speed game. And I think they played right into Tampa's hands. I mean, the 5-on-3, the first goal that Johnson scored was a mistake, obviously. But power play opportunities, galore for both teams. And Tampa really got a chance to use their speed in counterattacking. They almost scored a couple times in that way in the second period, and really came to the forefront in the third, especially the power play goal where Killorn scored a great play by Victor Hedman.
Oh, what a pass!
But the Rangers, they can't allow Tampa to have that many power play opportunities because it gives them more chances to score. And I just thought and Cooper made a move going with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen that I thought made matchups against Stamkos and Johnson very difficult to make.
There's no question. I agree. That move was brilliant, and he did catch Vigneault by surprise. I mean, you can't help the Lightning altogether. It's hard to blame. I mean, it's hard to blame the Rangers altogether. Mike, you might want to log out and log in again. Sorry, we got that echo back, and it's on your side. Sorry about that. Is it still there? Did I blame Mike? It's gone?
I'm not hearing it echo.
Still there for me. Hold on. Yeah. Mute you for a second, Dan. This is wacky. All right. Muting Dan. Now, when I'm alone, I don't hear any echo, but I guess that would make sense because it's just me. I'm going to unmute Mike, unmute Dan, because that was kind of... Dan, could you log out, log in too? Cool. I'll just talk to myself for a while. So, yeah. Hi, how are you guys doing? What's up? It's just me and you now, and I can talk about the other guys. They're just jerks. They're idiots. I have to deal with them every day. They're here all the time. I just try to do a podcast. I try to have a fun time. I try to just sit there, and I figure I'm going to do it by myself, and they come on, and they're just jerks. And, hey, guys, how you doing? So, anyway, we were talking. We had a little discussion there for a while, me and the audience, about you guys. But that's all right. We're good. All right, so let's continuing on. I don't blame the Rangers completely for this because the refereeing last night, and I'm not a ref, I hate the bash on referees, but it was suddenly like we're calling it like preseason 2007.
It felt like a regular season game the way it was called.
Oh, I know. I mean, everything was, 5-on-3s and 4-on-3s, and it's amazing. I mean, there were more penalties last night in the first period, I think, than there were in the entire Islanders Capitals series.
That's a great thanks.
But the Rangers had a 2-man advantage and didn't take advantage of it. I mean, they overpassed the puck. I mean,
they really do.
Yeah, I mean, Johnson's goal was a direct result of a bad pass to St. Louis that he couldn't handle. That that Johnson and I think it was Palat broke away or Phil Palat broke away on a 2-on-0. I mean,
when you're down 5-on-3 at 2-on-0, the other direction is pretty crazy.
Right.
I mean,
something bad really had to happen.
Yes, with addition, you can tell that it's 5-1 the other direction. So that's like not, yeah. I mean, let's just throw it out right now. Tyler Johnson might be the best American-born center since Mike Modano and Jeremy Roenick. I mean, he's just absolutely taking this. I mean, I'm throwing this. I think that's the truth. I mean, center-wise, in the U.S. we grow defensemen, right, and we grow wings, but we don't grow centers. In Canada, they only grow centers and they don't grow defense. But here in America, like when you look at the top centers, you have like Zach Parise. There's not that many top centers. So when you look at the U.S. team for the World Cup of hockey next summer, I'm saying, and Johnson's the top guy, and he wasn't even thought about for Sochi. Think about the craziness of that whole thing. It's just a year ago. He's already the top guy. You're both shaking your head. You disagree with me?
Well, the funny thing is, and I remarked about this on Twitter last night, is the fact that this guy just wasn't simply passed over by a team. He was passed over by all 30 teams for 4 years.
Right.
He had 115 points as a 20-year-old, as an overager with Spokane of the Western Hockey League, and nobody drafted him. No one. And he scored he scored 68 points the year I saw him for the first time, because he was a member of the Calder Cup team that John Cooper's coached Norfolk Admirals team that beat the Toronto Marlies in 2012, and he had 31 goals that year as a rookie in the AHL, and nobody knew about this guy, or at least nobody took the risk to sign him except for Steve Yzerman and the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they're reaping the rewards right now. He's in the argument of being one of the best American centers. I still don't think that he is the best.
Kessler?
One of the best.
Oh, I'll take him over Kessler any day of the week.
You think?
Any day of the week. This guy is so dynamic. He's like a combination of Pavel Bure and and he's got a little bit. He reminds me of like Dave Poulin, back in our day. It's just certain things he just does that are just incredible, and got a little Brian Trottier in him too. He makes these beautiful plays.
The Brendan Gallagher feistiness.
And it's insane because he was looked over so much. And it just goes to show you that, when you got younger players, it's so hard to judge the maturation speed that it takes different hockey players. It's just that's something that we want to say, okay, we can draft them at 18, and tell how good they're going to be by the time they're 20, but you can't always. It's just not the case. It's just sometimes players just take longer to adjust to the new game. But he now, and I said this earlier in the year and got laughed at by Josh and by you, Mike, and by Kevin, that I thought he was the best. I thought he was better than Steven Stamkos right now, and I still think he is.
I still think that's wrong. One of the reasons why he's so effective, and that triplets line, is because the main checkers are still checking Steven Stamkos. Now, the Rangers, I'm sure, are going to adjust to that now. I'm sure they're going to do what Montreal did, is put the main checkers on the triplets, and that will open up Stamkos to the opportunity to score more. And he scored a goal last night, but I think that's what will happen. And that's that's one of the main things that Tampa has an advantage with. When you have Stamkos and Johnson as a 1-2 punch, most teams can't shut down both of them. They can shut down one. They can't shut down both.
Exactly. He's right now he's far and away the Conn Smythe winner at this point. It's not even close. He's taking over. Just putting a hat trick together in last night's game that's enormously clutch play and enormous. That's a game that Tampa needs to win, and he comes through in a big way, scoring the 5-on-3 goal. It's just that's Dave Poulin-esque to me. That reminds me of like Mario Gosselin against the Quebec Nordiques in 1985.
And not only a hat trick, but a hat trick with its one shorthanded, one power play, and one even strength.
Right.
It's even more impressive.
Hitting for the cycle. So I don't or they don't really call it anything, do they? That's not the Gordie Howe hat trick, obviously. So what is that? We need to have it should be the cycle in hockey, but that's essentially it is.
Yeah, I've never heard a description of it before, but I know listening to one of the earlier shows this morning that they described, apparently Mario Lemieux did it, where he scored one.
Yes, he did against the Minnesota North Stars, right?
Yeah, one shorthanded, one power play, one even strength, and I think he scored into the empty net as well.
He did.
He also had a game, I think it was against New Jersey, where he had shorthanded, power play, regular strength, empty net, and a penalty shot.
Yeah.
That's probably something that'll never happen again.
That's just unfair. That's a 1 in a million right there. But we're talking about Mario Lemieux and Tyler Johnson in the same breath. So that's it's crazy stuff. Yes, this might be as good as it gets. But this year he has not. This happened. This was last year too. So this is not a new thing.
All those kids can play. All those Johnson can play. Kaloran can play. Kucherov can play. Palat can play. Palat was a 7th-round draft pick.
Right.
And they didn't rush these kids. They let them grow up together. They won a Calder Cup together. I saw those kids that they play against Bridgeport, and I'm watching this team, and I'm like, where did these guys come from? It's like you can tell a difference in the AHL who's a good minor league player, and then those people that have the guys who have that little something extra. You're like, wow, this kid's got something extra. This kid has that little jump, has that spark, or that little something that was like this cool. You could stand out at the next level. And that team, they didn't, like I said, they didn't rush him. And like we're not even like we're talking about all these good young players on Tampa. We haven't even mentioned Drouin. You know?
Yeah.
I was
a top 5 pick.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that in a minute. But the funny thing is, I mean, entering the third period of that game, it was 3-2. You know, Johnson had scored the hat trick. And arguably the biggest goal of the game was the Killorn goal, because the Rangers get back into that game on, you know, how many ugly, disgusting goals are the Rangers going to score? I mean, it's to their credit. I mean, Dominic Moore gets the winning goal off of his knee last night. Stepan throws it off of Colburn's body into the net. I mean, just really like, you know, deflection and bank shot goals. I mean, it's a credit to them that they're getting that, but I mean, is it impossible for them to score a regular goal?
They don't score a lot of easy goals. They got to work their tails off to get a goal. They're getting goals from hard work, but every so often, you know, it'd be nice just being able to score in a wrist shot.
Right, and they in the regular season got a lot of those from Rick Nash, you know, and that's the big thing, and that he was the guy who scored those, you know, goal-scoring type goals, and also Zuccarello, who was that. And this is why they're. I mean, with Nash not performing and Zuccarello not playing. They need to rely on, you know, crashing the net, which is harder to do against Tampa, because the Rangers, when they're at their best, their defense are pinching, you know, and pinching against Tampa is really dangerous.
Yes.
And that's what you're seeing, you know, that's the problem right now to me. Like, you can't pinch because Tampa counters incredibly well. They're a really good countering team.
Well, and what the Rangers are going to do, and this is why they've been so effective in the postseason the last 2 years. Going on the road plays right into their hands, because they can play that defensive game and not get the razzing from the crowd to open it up. I mean, I think they feel the pressure from the Madison Square Garden crowd to, you know, score some goals and to make it a little more exciting. Well, last night was more exciting and they lost. If they play more of a tactical game, which I think Alain Vigneault will do in games 3 and 4 in Tampa, they will be more effective. I probably see a split of the 2 games in Tampa, and they go back 2-2 to New York, next week or later in the week.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, and I think it's a 7-game series. It is. It it could. I did initially say Tampa in 6, which could be 2, but I think that I don't know. It's such a lot's going to depend on Bishop, and a lot's going to depend on when Tampa figures out the level they have to stay at. You know, that they're not quite there yet. They're almost there, but if they figure it out in this round, then it's going to be over quickly, because they're a much better team than the Rangers when they're playing at their best. I mean, it's not even close in my mind. And they're the best team in the Eastern Conference by a ton when they're playing their best.
Bishop is 9-1 in his career against the Rangers, and I know that's 8 of those 10 games were regular season games, but he seems to play at his best against the Rangers, and I don't think he's been a problem in the first 2 games. I think, you know, game 1 was a 1-goal game, and game 2, I think, like I said, the Rangers played into their hands, and Tampa, you know, scored on their opportunities. What I'm wondering is whether Cooper will stay with 11 forwards and 7 defensemen going back to Tampa, or whether he'll put the 12th forward in there and try to, you know, maybe loosen up the matchup. You know, he's going to have the last change, so maybe they can keep the triplets from facing a guy like Derek Stepan as the checking center. Maybe they can get him matched up against a Brassard or matched up against somebody else.
I think in the playoffs, it's always made more sense to go with the 11 forwards, 7 defense. I've always felt that. I never understood why they didn't. In my mind, the playoffs, because when you get into overtime in the playoffs, you're getting these long, epic games. It's the defense that wears down.
Right.
Right.
Well, I think you have to consider, too, is your 4th line. If you had a 4th line that, like, Boston had a few years ago, you know, you could responsibly give them, you know, minutes. Or if you look at the Islanders' 4th line, where, gosh, they were the best line for the team through the playoffs, you can easily give them minutes and bang on their defensemen. But if you have a 4th line where you're skipping them every couple of shifts, then I think it absolutely makes sense to play the extra defenseman.
Yeah. And what they did was I think Stamkos got a lot more ice time last night.
Did.
I mean, I saw him not only play with Filppula and Killorn, but he also mixed in an occasional shift with guys like J.T. Brown, and so I think he was the one being more double shifted than anybody else. They kept the triplets together most of the time, and Filppula mixed around a couple times, and Callahan mixed around a couple times, but the guy who got the majority of the extra ice time was Stamkos, and that's.
But it was comfortable too. It wasn't forced. He didn't look exhausted or gassed out there. I thought Cooper did a nice job managing the minutes last night.
No, I agree. I mean, it's. I think we're gonna see. I mean, the series is just a fun one to watch, and it's back and forth hockey. It's fast paced. It's great. I mean, that's what I think we have. We have a Final Four that's just really exciting hockey every night. Like tonight. So tonight we go back. Game 2 now with Anaheim and Chicago, and this is like I said yesterday, and I talked about it very briefly because we were running out of time. But my feeling was that that Anaheim, having played Winnipeg, having played Calgary, were very up for Chicago because they hadn't played a team, one of those top teams yet in the West. They hadn't played the kind of team that everybody says we got to beat Chicago to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. You don't say you have to beat Winnipeg or Calgary to get to the Stanley Cup Finals, but you got to beat Chicago. Where Chicago had already played 2 really tough series, even though they won them pretty easily. I mean, the Nashville series was closer. Those were 2 games that Chicago gets up for. They know Nashville, they know Minnesota. They're in the same division. They play all the time. They know what this is about. And Chicago, I felt like there was a letdown, like to go to play Anaheim. Not in a big way, but just in enough of a way that it was like, okay, we got here, and that getting here was quite a thing. And now, we don't know what to expect. They just didn't have the same intensity level that they had in the Minnesota series.
It's almost like they exhaled. They're like, wow, we got out of the Central,
Yeah.
Whew. And all of a sudden the Ducks punched them in the throat.
Which you can't blame them for because the Central was a hell of a feat to get out of. And,
right.
And the Ducks, they're like, oh, now we're playing this is the team that can beat us for sure, and we got to buck up.
Well, I mean,
the defense, obviously, Mike. Go ahead.
To that point, Ak, I mean, I will grant you, but the thing is, this is the first time that the Blackhawks and Anaheim have faced each other in the postseason. There isn't that rivalry there like they have against their division mates or against a team like Los Angeles or Vancouver from the Pacific Division. So it may take a game or two to work up that rivalry. And the funny thing is that most people who watched that game thought Chicago had the better of the offensive chances and that Frederik Andersen, saved Anaheim's bacon. That basically Anaheim was opportunistic on their they scored when they needed to score. They were up 2-1 going in the third period, got that goal from Nate Thompson, and then got the empty netter. The score didn't reflect the how even the game was. And I think that Chicago is probably going to, as they have in other series this year, will put it up to another gear tonight and try to even the series. Now, if Anaheim doing the same thing you're doing, Anaheim can go up 2-0, go back to Chicago and put the onus on the Blackhawks to hold serve, and they can just win one of those 2 games, then Chicago is in real deep trouble. But Chicago finds a way to win, and I have a feeling they're going to find a way to win tonight.
I think we're going to be 2-2 after 4 games, just in both series.
Yeah,
I would be very surprised if one of these teams was up 3-1.
The big thing about this series is it's going to be really hard to eliminate either Anaheim or Chicago. Like it doesn't matter if you're up 3-0, 3-1, whatever. It seems like it's going 7 no matter how you slice it. Because I just think that Anaheim and Chicago are both able to find that extra level in an elimination game. Yes, the Rangers are too. We haven't seen it from Tampa yet, but we might. But the Rangers, Anaheim, and Chicago, you're talking about 3 teams that are really hard to knock out of the playoffs. They will battle till the very last minute. And I don't know. To me, it doesn't matter if it's 3-0 in the series. It's still going 7. I think this is a series that's just going to play that way, and the more desperate team is going to be there and can get their chance. But I mean, Kessler is a big deal in this series, obviously, because while Anaheim hasn't played Chicago, Kessler sure has played Chicago in the playoffs before, and that you can see. You can see that Kessler's under their skin already. He's the guy, that Vancouver-Chicago, there were some epic series back then, including the one where Chicago almost came back from 3-0 to win it. So, yeah, but then so you can see, and Kessler's just playing, I think, like as good a hockey as he's played in his career.
Yeah, and he's hungry. He wants to win a cup. I mean, he came very close in Vancouver. But you watch over the next few games. There's going to be those players on Chicago who are professional disturbers like Andrew Shaw, and that will try to get underneath Kessler's skin. I mean, they're going to try to loosen, shake up their lines and maybe get Taves away from Kessler in a head-on-head matchup because I think Kessler is the best guy who can neutralize Taves. I mean, you're never going to neutralize him 100%, but he can try to limit his offense. I'll bet you anything Joel Quenneville would take a head-to-head matchup of Getzlaf against Taves, because Getzlaf isn't as good defensively as Kessler is. I think Taves can create against Getzlaf better than he can against Kessler.
I think that's safe to say. I mean, I think that we're going to, the obvious difference in this series right now is the Chicago defense is just beaten up. And,
yeah, it is.
And that the longer this series goes, that definitely plays in Anaheim's hands, no question about it. Because Anaheim, they have so much power up front. I mean, they've got, the Getzlaf Perry line is like, the modern equivalent of like the Legion of Doom. Like that they're really impossible to stop. They just completely cycle the puck.
And I'll disagree with what Kevin said yesterday. I mean, he was basically saying that Chicago will play Keith and Seabrook and Oduya and Yarmulson. They'll play them 30 minutes if they have to. I mean, if Anaheim beats on those top four defensemen, you can see from game one that Quenneville does not trust Rundblad. He played him 10 minutes.
He was overwhelmed. Rundblad was overwhelmed.
He was completely overwhelmed, and he does not trust the health of Kimmo Timonen at age 40 because he played him 6 minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if that continues. That the Rockford the Rockford franchise, their AHL team, just ended their AHL season. They called up their Black Aces. At this point, if Rundblad is overwhelmed and Timonen can't play, then some of their defensemen might step in as a 5 or 6.
Mike, did they call up Polka? Billy Polka?
Yes, Billy Polka.
Yeah, for Islander, he was in the Nicoletti trade, Islander draft pick. Good-looking prospect, and he made the All-Rookie team for the AHL too. So, hey, at this point, can you get 15 minutes out of him where you don't trust Rundblad for 10? I don't know.
Right. That's a really good question. Also, we have to move on to Todd McClellan. It's 4 o'clock press conference today. The Edmonton Oilers are holding, and they're going to bring in Todd McClellan as coach. This is an interesting one because I don't know that this is the way the Oilers should be going, in my opinion. And I know that there's people in the Oilers organization who don't think that. The Oilers organization is such a fascinating one. The way this team is run is there's so many people with opinions, and they're very vocal about it, like to the media, to people like me. You get really blatant. I don't know, maybe it's something about the fact that they feel like they're in the middle of nowhere up in Edmonton, but they'll just talk to you about how they feel, and
no one's gonna find out.
Right? Like it's not gonna happen. And there were a lot of people that were against McClellan because he's a player-friendly coach. Considered a player-friendly coach because he was in this, he comes from the assistant coach lineage, which is always like, okay, assistant coaches are more player-friendly. And I mean, he's obviously skilled. He's learned under Mike Babcock. The Sharks were always have a great record over. They made the playoffs every year. That he was there, except for this year. And he does tend to take it out on his players at times, but not in a bad way. He's very player-friendly. And to me, Aikens was a player-friendly coach in Edmonton, and that was a disaster. So I'm curious about that. Like, I would have gone, I thought that the interim coach they brought up, I really preferred. I mean, I thought he was not a player-friendly coach, and they got results from that. This is if there's ever a situation where you need like a teacher, and like this would have been a great spot for Hackstall, Dave Hackstall, who was brought in here because when the Flyers brought in, they had the press conference for Hackstall yesterday. One of the things Ron Hextall said was, we like the fact that he has spent a lot of his coaching career coaching 18 to 22-year-olds, because we have a lot of 18 to 22-year-old prospects on this team. Who else has? The Oilers are a team like that, right? The Oilers have a team that has these prospects. You need somebody. McClellan has had a veteran team for the most part in San Jose.
Yeah, and has had. Go ahead, Dan.
I mean, he's Couture and Pavelski came into those situations, as kids, and Vlasic, and they've developed under him.
True.
And I think you make some good points that they might need a bully, more of a disciplinarian, but at the same time, it's almost like they need structure. And I think McClellan can bring structure. I think he can do that, and I think he can win some games too. So is he maybe the long-term solution? I don't know, but is he someone that can get you relevant again, get you winning games again, maybe get you close to 500 again? I think he is someone that can do that and get these kids, back on the right track.
See, I kind of think the opposite of what you're saying there. Like, I think he is the long-term solution, but he's not the solution for right now. Like, in my mind, I think that right now you need to, like, he's the coach. When the Oilers have made the playoffs a couple years and are trying to get over the hump, he's the coach to bring in, right?
That's fair.
But right now, to get them to that point, I mean, we have no idea. Todd McClellan's never coached a team like that. Couture, Pavelski are incredible players, you know. But look at what Thomas Hertl's gone through. Like, there are players on that team too that you can say, okay, on the Sharks team that have been inconsistent young players, and they've had their share of those as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, so it's really a crapshoot. I've never been a huge McClellan fan, and I am a Sharks fan. So, I follow the Sharks closely, and I see the one thing about the Sharks is that we're wildly inconsistent as a team. I mean, there were games when the Sharks really looked. They could play. Suddenly, they're playing the Hawks and they're winning 6-1, and then the next night they're playing the Oilers and they're tying 2-2. You know, that was a typical Sharks weekend. When they played their best against better teams, they played down to their opponents a lot. That killed the Sharks for years. And of course, you have the whole quagmire of, you know, and this some people are saying is McClellan's out. You know, the Thornton-Marlowe situation. Well, but you know, at the same time, you know, I don't think he handled that particularly well.
Well, I don't think the players handled it well either, though.
Yeah, I mean, it was handled poorly all over the place. But he's got to take his share of that. So.
Sure.
Yes, but he's been there for so long that I'm sure that situation just festered and boiled over, and it was never gonna be solved. But the thing to your point about him being a fit in Edmonton, is that the thing is, I almost feel that the coaching situation, short of it being Babcock, was secondary to Chiarelli coming in as the general manager, because I really believe that the problem in Edmonton is, I mean, first of all, you need a good teaching coach who can provide structure, and I think McClellan could do that. But it's a question of talent in the right places. They are a front-loaded team with a ton of offensive forwards that we've talked about many a time.
Same player. 5 of the same player.
Right, exactly. Their defense is hideous. When you're adding in Nikita Nikitin and Mark Fane and Andrew Ference as your to play top 4 minutes when most of them are probably 3, 4, 5, 6 defensemen. They have no top pairing guys. They don't have a number 1 goaltender. That's what Chiarelli is going to have to do. That's his task. Now, he had to get a good, stable NHL coach. He got that with McClellan. But now the work begins. He's got to go out and get himself a couple.
No, there's no question. You're right about that. I mean, McClellan, Chiarelli's got the harder task right now. Not harder is a hard. They both have really hard tasks right now. Because, and you're right. And Chiarelli's he's got to trade one of the big guys. He's got to trade Yakupov, Draisaitl. He's got to trade, you know, Eberle or even Nugent Hopkins. He's got to trade one of those guys to get the defense that he needs. Like, they have to sacrifice one of those guys. And you should have no problem doing that at this point, because you have too many top 6 forwards, and anyone wants in the NHL is a top 6 forward. So it's like you literally are holding on to and you got to tell me that there's a deal to be made between the Predators and the Oilers. I mean, they have absolutely complementary parts to what each other needs. There's no question about it. So there's a deal. I mean, look at what Roman Josi did. I mean, Roman Josi, you know, he just if you can make a Nugent Hopkins for Roman Josi trade, you do that. If you can get Roman Josi in there.
I don't think Nashville would. Yeah,
I don't think they might, because the thing about the Predators is that they have Seth Jones coming, and they can't pay all these defensemen.
Sure.
And they have nothing up front. I mean, not nothing, but Mike Ribeiro was their top center, right? So you bring in you need to bring in, you know, a center would be great. You know, if Nugent Hopkins was if they could get themselves a really top line center, that would be great. But you know, they'll have to settle for what they can settle for at this point. I think, though, that there's certain things about McClellan that have always concerned me. The way he handles his goalies, I've never really been a big fan of that. That's going to be a big issue in Edmonton.
And he's got no goalies to handle right now.
He's got no goalies to handle right now.
Yeah, Victor Fast is a UFA.
Brent Burns. Let's talk about Brent Burns for a second. This has been a crazy situation in San Jose, right? And we just saw Brent Burns in the World Championships, you know, dominate as a defenseman. So I think that if nothing else, the World Championships should make Brent Burns a defenseman from now on. Like, we should just accept the fact that he is a defenseman. And that should have been accepted a long time ago in San Jose, but it wasn't. You know, so to me, that's a McClellan call right there. That's a coach's call. through and through, right? That's
I mean, he went back to defense last year because they got rid of Dan Boyle, but that was more out of necessity than it was out of a design.
It was out of necessity, exactly. Which it shouldn't have been. It should have just been, okay, Brent Burns is a defenseman. We got to build around that. They have plenty of forwards in San Jose. They didn't need to play him on forward. They have plenty of forwards. They have, young guys coming up. They've got veterans. I mean, they easily have a solid top six. They don't need Brent Burns, and they should have just accepted that. They should have worked that out, and I don't know that they didn't. It should be a little concerning to Oilers fans. I think that was such a, quagmire. So I don't know. That to me is, I mean, I'd like the fact this is obviously a high-profile signing for the Oilers. This coach, they're bringing in one of the top gets of the summer, no question about it. This is way more big than Haxtell was in Philly. Where you're pulling out somebody that no one expected. And part of Edmonton's with what's going on in Edmonton, you kind of have to do that. You can't really take a chance in Edmonton right now. You've got to go with a guy like you're saying, Mike. I think that's the stabilization, because McClellan. No one's going to blame you if it doesn't work out, because McClellan was a good, was a solid coach and da. And that is important in Edmonton right now because they have to stabilize this whole situation. But I don't know. I'm really now the other one I want to touch on real quick is Babcock before we go. And what my blog was about today, which is, and I got a lot of response from people in the league who said that they thought it was really pretty close to what they feel is going to happen, which is that Babcock is going to, he's in San Jose, right? He's at this point as we talk. But I don't buy that San Jose. I think this is, to me, the San Jose thing in Babcock doesn't make much sense. Like, I don't think that that's a place he wants to go. And I think San Jose is doing a great thing PR-wise by bringing him there, because they last summer did nothing. This summer they can say we had Mike Babcock in. That at least helps, especially in light of McClellan being named coach today. And it's all good PR for the Sharks. But I don't think Babcock's going to go to San Jose. At the end of the day, there's a lot of travel involved in the West. He's been through the West. He loved being in the East compared to the West. I think that going to San Jose is even worse than being in Detroit. So that's travel-wise is a tough one. But okay, you take that into account. But at the same time, you've got St. Louis, San Jose, Buffalo, and Toronto. 4 teams essentially that have been given permission to talk to him. 4 teams who have talked to him now after San Jose does. And these are the teams that are, when you look at it, I don't know, Babcock, it seems like he can, and from all indications, he's going to go back to Detroit, right? But what I'm hearing, but the problem with that whole scenario is the money. People are forgetting about the money. That Detroit has not offered him this blockbuster deal. So he goes back. He can sit back and say, "I'm going back to Detroit," but unless the Devils, unless these owners in Detroit are willing to put out the money,
right?
What then? So how I think it's going to play out is Babcock in the next couple days will come out and say, "I am not going to talk to any more teams. I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk to Detroit about what we're going to do." But I don't think that's the end of this, because I am not convinced that Detroit's going to go to anywhere near Toronto or Buffalo.
Well, I mean, and see, that's the thing. I mean, I think we're coming closer to a resolution than you do, because I would have thought that he would have found that out already from Detroit. I mean, the whole purpose of him going back to Detroit is saying, okay, well, Toronto's offering me, and I'm just saying these amounts. I don't have inside information that this is what Toronto or Buffalo offered. But if Toronto said they're offering me $6 million a year, and Buffalo said we're offering you $5 million a year, then you go back to Detroit and you've been with Kenny Holland over at the World Championships the last week, and you say, okay, this is what I've been offered. Will Detroit offer me 4.5, and if they do, then the deal is done. If they're saying, well, we can't make any promises, then he says, okay, well, I got to take the money. Unless you come up.
I think he's playing. I don't think that's what's happening. I think he's playing his hand out, because what he's doing here is he is assuming that Detroit's going to match whatever other teams are saying. I think in his head, he's saying that, and I think that's a big assumption to make based on the Detroit ownership, because they're not the kind that are necessarily going to do that. They might look at it like this is kind of a strange situation, and why would we do that? They might say when you just negotiate, you're just using other teams to drive the price up for us. I think the ownership, between Holland and between Babcock is a totally different thing than the owners. So everything that's going on with Holland, you can sit back and say, okay, this is the thing with Holland, and he's hanging out with Holland. That doesn't really matter because Holland doesn't write the checks. So this is going to come back to the ownership, whether or not they're going to step up. And I don't know that they will because they can sit back and say, we love Babcock, but at the end of the day, he's won one playoff series in the last 4 years.
And what may be at play here, Ak, is the fact that that Mike Ilitch may think I have the golden ticket in my back pocket, and his name is Jeff Blashill.
Right.
And if
he's $1.5 million a year.
Right. And then you know what? Then I don't know what Babcock is doing if he decides to say I'm going back to Detroit, because the first thing that Toronto, Buffalo, and a few other teams will be doing is asking for permission from Detroit to talk to Jeff Blashill. And if Detroit says no, you can't talk to him, then I don't know what the hell the whole.
Well, they've already said no, that you can't talk to him to a couple times.
Right, but nobody has asked permission as of yet, because he seems to be the secondary choice for.
Oh no, that's not true. I know for a fact that they have. The teams have asked permission to talk to him, and they've said no, that they're not gonna. And the reason they're saying no is because they can't. They'll say we don't know what's happening with Babcock, so we can't let anybody talk to him yet. So that's within their rights.
It just seems like Toronto and Buffalo are a smokescreen, maybe, because it's like if he's saying he wants to win right now, it's not going to be in those two organizations. It might be in a few years for the Maple Leafs. That's quite an undertaking. Mike, we can get into that another time. And Buffalo is closer. You know, it would be, I think it's closer to relevancy. But if he wants to win right now and he wants to go to an organization where he thinks he can win right now and mold a team quickly, I don't think those are those two are the best fit for him. So if you take them out of the equation, then what is it? Where are his options besides Detroit? I don't know.
Well, St. Louis is definitely an option. They're a good team.
That seems weird too, that they would be bringing in. They have a head coach, and then that's just ugh.
I don't think they do anymore. I think that we don't know. I mean, and I knowing Hitchcock as I do, and I know him pretty well, and I haven't gotten any response from him in the last couple of days, which also tells me something. I do think that there's a big. I know Hitchcock's not happy about them talking to Babcock.
Of course not. Of course. Why would you be? Why would Why would you be happy with a guy? Like, hey, I have a job, and you're interviewing someone for my job.
Right, exactly. So that's the scenario. I mean, I don't. You also can never downplay the ego of coaches. Like he looks at Toronto and Buffalo as maybe not as far away because I'm there, and we can turn this around, and they've got young talent, and you can never. There's not a coach I don't think in the NHL who worth his weight in gold wouldn't be able to say I could take any team and take them there, because these 30 teams, there are, the Maple Leafs come out and they beat the Chicago Blackhawks once in a while. Like, things just happen, right? So you get a great coach in there, and it could happen, So I think that. Yeah,
but the thing with Toronto is that they are focused on the rebuild. It's not just that this team can, you get the right coach in there and they can turn it around real quick. The organization wants to rebuild that team, wants to clear out the veterans, wants to bring in young players. That will take 3 or 4 years. That's
right. They wouldn't mind being another a top 5 pick. They would actually need another top 5 pick next year.
Exactly. And Babcock or a really good head coach, may not fit the plan for what's going on in Toronto. What may happen is you may have a guy who's a transitional coach, a guy like a Guy Boucher, a guy like a Paul McLean, a few other names who, if they lose, they're not going to be blamed for it, but the organization gets the chance to add franchise players at the top of the draft, teach a structure. I mean, with Babcock, the pressure will be to improve right away and become as good as possible right away. And I don't think that the collection in Toronto right now is consistent with that. So I think, it's either going back to Detroit or Buffalo. Buffalo seems more of a fit, because I think Buffalo could contend for a playoff spot based on the moves that Tim Murray makes as soon as maybe next year or maybe 2 years with a Babcock as the head coach. But no scenario I see is as good as Detroit for him, but It's all a question of what he can make from them. And if they will say, "Oh, we're only going to pay you $3.25 million,"
it's not going to happen.
Then
it's not going to happen for a bunch of reasons. And it's one, it's kind of, he'll look at like an insult, because he's been wooed by these teams who are telling him how much they'll give him and he's been on this tour, right? So he's going to go back and he's like, you're my family, and you don't see what I'm worth. They show it. So that's the one thing. The other thing is he really feels this deep sense of responsibility, and I've heard this from so many people, that he wants to push the coaching salaries ahead, you know. And if the NHLPA, if there was an NHLPA for coaches, they would be saying that you can't sign a contract for $3.5 million, Mike. You've got to sign a $5 million contract. You've got to go forward because otherwise you're selling all of your other coaches short.
You know, the funny thing is, you know, yes, there's been like 4 or 5 teams, but, you know, the way it sounded like a month ago, if Babcock hit the open market, you know, every team in the league was going to be like, you know, opening up, you know, unveiling the red carpet for him.
Well, why that was clearly, because I said yesterday, you know, and I'll say again, or as I wrote about yesterday, and this is something that and I talked to the Flyers, other people about this as well, that, you know, were teams that were included in this, and San Jose had a problem with it too, is the scenario that Mike Babcock painted was totally unique to coaches in that he was going to come in and you were going to talk to him and he wasn't really going to talk to you. He wasn't going to come in and tell you what his systems were, what he would do to your team.
Right.
I'm Mike Babcock. You know I'm a great coach. I'm going to fix your team. You have to sell yourself on me. That's the way it plays out. And some of the old school NHL people wanted nothing to do with that. You know, that's not the way this works. I mean, they wanted the free advice on their team or whatever they were going to get, but they wanted it, and they wanted to hear what his plans were before they gave him $7 million. I want to hear what your plans are.
Well, here's the thing too: is like, okay, let's just say hypothetically, Detroit signs him for $5 million. What does Ken Holland make? Does Holland make that? Does Holland make $5 million a year? So all of a sudden, Babcock makes more than his quote unquote boss. I mean, now what does that do to general manager's salary structure throughout the league?
It does. It messes it all up. And Holland and Babcock are not the closest of people. I mean, with each other too. I mean, there have been plenty of wars between those two. As much as right now, you know, Holland is controlling this whole thing because you have to go through Holland to talk to Babcock. That's another weird. There's a whole.
It's just whole thing's weird.
And this could backfire in Babcock's face if he tries to play some sort of delay tactic, because Buffalo will move on. Buffalo will move on pretty quickly to get the next guy in line. I don't know.
I heard Dan Balsama's name mentioned today with Buffalo, which comes to
good fit.
You know, which makes some sense. And
well, based on all the Pittsburgh mafia in Buffalo, you know, the Craig Patrick.
Right, there's the connection.
Yeah, that would make sense. I don't think Toronto is going to wait around too long. I mean, I think what will happen in Toronto is the focus will go then towards hiring the general manager. And more than likely that means wait, but that will probably have to wait until after the draft, because the guy or guys that they're interested in could be with NHL teams that are currently in the playoffs, or they're intimately involved in the team's drafting process, and that means that they won't be let go until early July. But I can't see them waiting until like the middle of July to hire their coach.
No, it doesn't make sense, because you want a plan in place, you want structure in place, because as soon as the draft's over, you're already talking rookie camp for some of these players, and obviously you want a head coach in place for having a structure and a system already. I mean, the closer we get to the draft, I would think you'd want your coaching staff in place.
Well, this whole scenario that I'm talking about could play out fast. Like this is not like Babcock talking to Detroit for weeks about this. This is he goes back and talks to Detroit, and they says this is what it was, and they say no, and then they maybe go back and forth a couple days. I mean, he could be back from the Detroit thing and back into the open market again by the end of this week. That's how I think this whole thing could play out.
Well, you know, since he's not coming to Brooklyn, I'm over it.
Yeah. So I know there's so much going on, guys. We appreciate you guys supporting the Hockey Buzzcast and of course Alpha Geek Radio. And thanks, Dan, so much for jumping on today. We'll have Russ Cohen tomorrow, I believe.
No, we'll have Dan tomorrow. We'll have Russ Cohen on Thursday.
Fantastic. That's better. Yeah, you know what? I keep thinking it's Wednesday, but it's only Tuesday. All right. So we'll be back tomorrow. Of course, we'll be talking about Anaheim and Chicago, and I think we may have some more Babcock news by then. So.
Oh, yay.
More Babcock blocking. Okay. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Talk to you later.